Let us give a round of applause and welcome architect Lok Kuang Wooi.
All right. Well, giving them a bit of time. It's good to be, I would say good to be back, because 12 years ago, we had Datum as well. I was speaking, I think, about 12 years ago. And at the time, not so big. We don't have to split it up to green, plus, and all that. I think hopefully next year there are more subgroup, yeah. But it's good to speak to all of you. But I think after the first speaker, now is for something probably completely opposite. You're going to look at something very small, because my practice is not big. My theory of architecture is not to have a theory, mainly to do. And I'll share with you some work that I've done recently in the context of green. And when I was invited, I was a bit thinking about what should I talk about green. And suddenly I realized green is not something new. Even during our time, during when we were training, like dinosaur time, about 30 odd years ago. And recently, I go back to university and all that, I find that there's some shift. The student, last week I spoke in another university. I noticed that students now don't know a lot of canon, so to speak, like Yon Uzun, they say, huh? And I hope, I was quite happy that I still remember who Frank Lloyd Wright is, So they are definitely changing time, right? So today I'm going to share with you, the title is Living in a Tropical Malaysia. Because on my own, I believe that architecture, not just about building, is actually a cultural practice. And I try to bring that point across as I go through the project. And also reimagining the familiar. I was born in northern part of Malaysia, just now as introduced by Alice, is that it is kampong area, village and things like that, a plateau and things like that. But I don't want to keep identifying myself with Kedah, but I'm very much practice in KL, but in Selangor. And my practice, I generally don't do houses more than 50 kilometers from my house. A bit crazy, isn't it, in the current state of global architecture and things like that. Not because of anything, but I like what I'm doing. So I like to go to the site. So 50 kilometers, I still can go within a day and come back and enjoy myself. And then during those days, 20 years ago, when I start my practice, my children come back, they still see me. Just like when I was young, I come back to my house, I see my parents. So it's a very sort of slow, laissez-faire, not really a good business type of architecture, but I enjoy what I'm doing. So reimagining the familiar is because even we are talking about kampong and all those areas, living in Malaysia, we tend to take that for granted. That's why I call it reimagining the familiar. Hopefully through the work that I show you, you get that point as well, hopefully. But to be honest with you, living until today in this country of ours, with all the tribulation, enjoyment or whatever, I still don't quite get what Malaysia is. I don't know about you. I'm born in probably a good area where there are a good high number of Malay population. So as a young age, I was invited because my father cannot attending all the kenduri because she run a small kedai runcit there, small shop, sundry shop. So I will be like representative or wakil at the age of 10, 11 and things like that. So as I show you later, you'll probably get that. And that actually influenced me throughout my career even until today. And I enjoy it. That's the strange side about this. And this is the only text you're going to see. So I know architects don't like to read text, but this is the only text I'm going to share with you. But this actually, in a way, summarizes the way I look at Malaysia, right? Malaysia. Is that, we tend to take things for granted. And then we are doing architecture. To be honest with you, we can do anything today, even in Malaysia. You can do anything. You can get whatever material you have in Malaysia, right? As long as you can pay for it. It's not a rocket science. And it's actually quite mundane when you actually pare it down to the minimum. Everyone can do it. There are buildings built without architects. We all know about that. Engineer can do a factory without architects. But I find that there's only way that I can enjoy what I'm doing. Not to say I enjoy it. It's because you look at the mundane with the extraordinary. And then we're doing some, like what I do, the main staple probably is houses. It's a very normal typology, if you like, of building. But if you want to put in extraordinary effort, and an extra different angle of looking at something very simple like that. This is 15 minutes from my house. This is Wawasan Hill, UPM, University Putra's Reserve. Certain part we cannot go in, but this is what I see. Almost every week I have to go there. Then you look at the buttresses that we study in Gothic architecture and things like that. Probably those guys get the idea from the root of our trees, the buttresses and things like that. Of course, I probably have to do a screenplay on sci-fi that somehow bring it to this part of Malaysia, to look at these buttresses. Some are quite incredible. But for me, architecture aside, after 20 years of practice, meaning you also can roughly guess how old I am, and our children are quite big already. So this is very important to me even for this. Now times are not so good, so the best way to really enjoy yourself at the economy scale is to take my wife become my girlfriend again. So the cheap way, we go to the Wawasan and do hiking, right? And occasionally, I can do some selfie and put it on Instagram to inform my daughter what I was doing. And then my wife can have a sense of achievement that, a bit of show off that she achieved this little hill, climb up to the top. But that aside, the joke aside, come back to Malaysia. Now, this is a picture taken quite some time ago by a client. My client is the retired Colonel Murad. It was a long time ago, this one quite some time ago, in Terengganu. And this one is a reassembled house in Terengganu. It's a simple picture, I know, but to me, it reads a lot about what is on about in terms of Malay architecture, traditional sense. The change of platform, it becomes a seat. The building itself becomes a furniture. So it doesn't have a lot of time we tend to think the Japanese have this sort of very simple way of handling things, but we come back and look at our own. And here in Terengganu, they call suso tumpang. And then they have a large eave that coming down and shading the place. And then look at the way they finish the stairs. I'm not saying decoration is right or wrong, but you can see the loving care. Or what they see, that timber, they use it in a very sparingly, and also they use it in a very loving fashion, right? And I remember I got a shock when I come back from Australia. I was there for 10 years, and then you have certain expectation of what architecture is. And coming back, stay in a terrace house, you go up to the ceiling, you see all the timber that's running all over the place, and they are definitely not as loving as this one, right? So there's a culture of making that already intrinsic in Malay culture. It's being lost as well, I reckon. And I went to Kota Lama Duyung. There's a Kota Lama Duyung there that actually restore like sort of madrasah that built for the scholar during those time, or ulama. Is that I realized that they are actually not just that, but this is a simple detail that I almost repeated in all my talk whenever I have a chance. Is this a simple fascia board at the eave detail with a dowel that coming across, and then the whole house was restored without a nail. And Terengganu is well known for Terengganu. All the 5 species of Terengganu are there. And Cengau Batu, Cengau Bunga, they will use it for ukiran, Cengau Batu, Cengau Bunga, and then for structure, but they also use other wood. And then you see the pasak or the dowel that actually coming down to join. They use kayu naga. Kayu naga only available in Pulau Redang. And Pulau Redang, and then the craftsman was telling me, actually if you have a splinter in your hand, with Cengau you'll cry for 1 month. If kayu naga, you'll be probably 6 months. So what happened is that the kayu naga would expand and hold the structure together. I'm not giving a lecture on the technicality of timber, but it just goes to show that the culture during those times, they have an intrinsic culture of material. They know what to use. And in fact, in the old Malay culture, I say old because I don't think there's practice now, is that when a boy is born, they planted a chengao tree. A girl is born, they plant a coconut tree. And when they're coming to the what you call marrying age, they actually can chop down the chengao to become a tiang sri and things like that. But to me, it's like a sustaining culture. I mean, you plant the tree that you use later on. So the layout is simple. Of course, the lifestyle in the kampung area may be simple. They are pulled apart. They are not lumped together as one mass, but they always have been taken apart. And then they always have this selang or breezeway that allow air to move right through and all that. But that is the culture of living. Just now I touched on culture of making and culture of material. And I find that as a young boy, right, and I was born in a house something like this. But this is also quite close to my house that I took a picture some years ago, and then now also replaced by some nondescript development, right? Is that from a town like that going there, I was very amazed by how they make things so nicely in Malay houses. And in here, I'm not saying this is wrong, but it shows that this is the Chinese mainly stay in the town area. Very pragmatic. And what the point I want to show is that because I cannot find that house anymore, so I draw from my memory a few years ago about the house that I remember. That's where I was born. But this captured the simple way of life and very pragmatic as well. But instead of just now you see the zinc roof, the original one is actually atap roof. And as a young boy, when it rained, after the rain, you're very happy. Because when the rain stopped, the atap still drip with water, right? So what does that mean? Like now we are talking about rainwater harvesting and all that, but we also have a problem that when we have a roof that so efficiently run the roof, and then if we don't capture it properly, we have flash flood and things like that. Whereas this one, it will absorb the water and it will just drip slowly afterward. And then the configuration is very simple. We live up here, and then the shop is here, and then this extended, and then we hang all the goods that we are selling over here, and then create a bench here while they are waiting for the bus. So it's like, again, the building is a very humanized building. It allowed interaction to happen, and it allowed even though it's terrace, like for example, if the neighbor, we have a barber, is generally an Indian. They usually keep goat as well, so they will come and then eat the leaf of the tree that fall off this thing. And then my father built a chicken condominium at the back where we collect our daily need of eggs and things. And then if my neighbor cook laksa, for those people from overseas, laksa is our very Malaysian type of cooking. So you'll pass like 3 or 4 doors away. And likewise, if my mom do the cooking. So what I'm trying to get across is that actually this culture, although this is probably predominantly Chinese, and then earlier on predominantly Malay, but they have one thing in common: simplicity. And then in green, we always say reduce, reuse, recycle. And definitely this is more on the reduced version, right? But having said that, it's actually very dangerous. Those houses are very dangerous. For example, the timber. And during the 70s, I still remember the entire Kuala Kedah was wiped out almost because the partition is not a fire break. And what it means also, like for example, after the event, the whole little town that we have, is that they're talking about, they become very, very close together, meaning they're very careful with the gas they use and things like that. And eventually it built over time with a partition wall, a more safe house. That's why the making of it, like until today, I still practice. Some of the sketch are quite recent, some of the sketch are quite early on, but I still like to do this thing. But I think my influence definitely come from what I've been through. And also maybe from one of my lecturers in Australia, his name is Richard LaPlastre. He used to tell me that he was studying in Japan, and then he looked at all those huge columns in the Japanese Buddhist temple, and then he was very concerned. Why? Ask the monk, isn't that you cut down the forest? But the monk's answer is, as long as when you chop this down and you create something worthwhile, something useful, something beautiful, then probably chopping down that tree is justified. And then furthermore, timber are generally renewable. So I believe in the culture of making is that I will make something good and something more permanent that I don't need to, it's not disposable, like making chopstick or things like that that you use, you throw away. So that would be the intrinsic influence from Malaysian culture or Malay culture, if you like, that in the way I see architecture. And this is the house that quite recent. It's basically a series of pavilion, but I'm not going to go into detail. I just want to focus on that front screen. It's facing west, so I need to have a screen on the outside. So the process of making of the screen, sometimes also I realize that is how architects, what we draw is so expensive and so, it expends a lot of energy if you're not careful. So I was like sitting with you all on the right-hand side, is that during, we got a goodie from the outside. It's one of the datum. I actually come in and then I think Lysat and BlueScope give this. And when you find the lecture is boring, you start sketch away. This is what happened. I hope some of you are actually doing that at the back. It's all right, I understand. So I was thinking about, rather than straight things and, when you have it straight, you cannot filter. When you have it horizontal, you cut down the light, it becomes very dark on the inside. So I've decided to have some sort of like a grid of things like that. So I resolved eventually with the sketch on the right-hand side. But the poor Mujib is that guy on the top there. They're always an unsung hero. But he stayed in the job the longest. Because my houses, unfortunately, take a bit longer time than usual. In Australia, they can finish it in 1 year. My one, I think, 2 year plus or something like that. But there's a reason behind that. So he had to, I thought, the idea was that to use off-cut smaller wood that I can piece it together. Then I said, wow, very good. I save on the wood, So true enough, I save on the wood because they're off-cut, smaller size. I intended to use Chengao. But of course, the process is that they have to paint every single piece, stain it, because ideally not to stain it, but Chengao you will leach with a stain and things like that. So they have to do like that. So they come up with a very ingenious way of separating it while let it dry by itself. And then we use a lesser wood. On the right-hand side is another guy. He didn't stay too long, so I can't remember his name. But he did the what do you call, a mock-up on the side. And it's supposed to be in and out. So horizontal is supposed to be outer to cut the light. So, but I was wrong because I spent a lot of labor. But it's all right, It's better to invest in people than the material, isn't it? This is the process of they getting it up. So when it is done. So it seems to work because I do that because behind it is a full height louver that they can actually let the light to come in throughout. And then it's still, like, look at the far end, it's still quite a delicate view that you can still look right through. And it's quite different from if I were to have it horizontal or vertical. Now that conversation of vertical or horizontal, sometimes we just want to have a screen, we don't care much. But I feel that there's an important question to ask sometime on things like that, depending on what you want to achieve. And this house is a bit like the Malay house that I saw, the traditional, the generic house. So it's a series of pavilion. And from afar, during construction, but this house is completed about 3.5 years back. They're staying there for 3.5 years back. Is that it'll be like 4 pavilion and it's sort of like linked together. And I basically the idea was that I created a wall, turn his back on the street, because I find that the street are not very friendly anyway. Everyone just want to show off their car, so we do the reverse. But this client good thing is that he's a bit like me. He's from a kampong. He's even more kampong in Sarawak, Barrio, So his car, he used what do you call Malaysian Perdana car and things like that. So you have a wall like that, and then you sort of like have a spine that leading up. But it's actually a combination of two land. One is higher than the other. First, you want to flatten the land. I said, no, that's not a smart way. Not only that, it's not a green way to do, because you have to export earth and import earth and things like that. I said, make use of the step. So if you will come in through here, and then He loved fish, so he created a big pond here, and then eventually a garden. And another thing, he also understood one thing. Generally, because in Malaysia, in PJ and Klang Valley area, the land is very expensive. So the general intention when they buy the land, they want to build big. And here I am, I said, no, you build small, you build low-key a bit, and you use local material. Just like I was talking about timber just now, Malaysia have about, a lot of people don't know, we have 2,650 species, known species that we know. But we probably depleted maybe just chengal or something like that. So I said, use local material. In fact, I want to use commonly available material. And Malaysia, unfortunately, also because we have too many of these, we don't really, we take it for granted, something very familiar. There's something like always that we can get, you know. So I said, use something local. Even the brickwork and things like that, we get it local. A common brick. I don't want any facing brick. So that is the idea. If you're thinking about food, the equivalent would be like a local wall. Local wall, let me eat whatever is available. But it's not quite true. I like some other non-local material as well. Then upstairs is just a simple, what do you call it? That's early sketches. After a while, it sort of evolved. It's sort of like, this one we sort of curve it off and things like that. But this is the one that I confirmed the job. I always use a hand sketch to, I find that it's more easy, what do you call, more relatable to the client. And when it's done, all you see when you come through the road is just a tip of the roof of a single-story study there. And then on the side, then it sort of revealed to you there's a 2-story high. And again, I explore a lot of idea. That sometimes you say architect is a shock sendiri, you know, but maybe it's true. But the ages is, I'm very interested. It's from Sarawak. I thought it's if you have like a long house, this is my version. So again, this is reimagining the familiar. I want something very light that you can relate to the tree, even touch the tree and things like that, not heavy. And then use some wood which is relevant. And how it's arrived on is a lot of the time on the site, you get close to the person who do the work. You can call them craftsmen if you want, if they do the work well. It's actually a steel that I just get them. This is the sketch on site that I tell them that's what we want to do. Like you don't need to sit everywhere, but some part you can actually put your glass or something like that. It's a variation along the what do you call, that balcony or the terrace there. So you can see this is like a dancing, what do you call, the steel work, which is 16 mm diameter MS steel. Yeah? And when this is done, you will see timber, you'll see timber, and then you'll see the forest. The aging is quite, the demarcation is very blurred. And at night, it becomes like a very inviting corner for them to sit. And about making is probably this living room. Although the entire place, probably this is an area where they entertain themselves. And when we come to bungalow design, I don't have a preconceived idea. I take a very detailed brief. And this client of mine, he like to jam with the sun, you know, blue and things like that. So the whole living hall is no longer just a living hall. It's almost like a jamming area. So the roof I use Nyato, 18 mm thick. But again, like what I said, we can draw it very easily. Like for example, I can easily tell them exactly how long, how wide, and things like that for the member. But to actually do it, it takes a bit of a doing. Huh? And this is during construction. And the brick, I also love brick because I find that they are, what do you call, readily available is one thing, but somehow it's related to the place where it's created. This is only about 20 minutes away to get this brick. So when it is done, and it's important to have a wife that really supportive of you, so she can actually walk up and down the stairs to say whether it's strong enough. No, I get my fat engineer to do that. So this is when it is done. Basically, I find that this is like a roof, overhanging roof. When it's done, of course, they start to fill up with the knick-knack and things like that. And when it's really lived in after a while, because of the center garden, you actually don't see much of the architecture. So it's quite hard to take picture after when it's finished, which I love it, you know. This is, we use a lot of Caesapinia, Bushida, as some of you can identify. And this is where he built, he now have Temole and KLAF at the center. Now this next house, as I think our gated property getting a bit tighter, that two sides, when it linked together, is nearly 25,000 square feet. And now I'm dealing with, I hated, in fact, gated and guarded property. And now every architect that we go in there to open the boots for the security to check, you feel that it sort of reflects architects' position now in Malaysia these days. But in any case, this is only 8,000 square feet. So it's relatively tight. Of course, if I speak in Hong Kong terms, this is huge, right? But this is, in Malaysia, is considered quite tight. But this is, again, I look at it, then instead of having, I cannot afford to have a garden at the center. So I have to use a different strategy. And how do I create ventilation and in our climate? And again, it presents a very severe facade, if you like, that it doesn't want to see the neighbor. In fact, I find that the context, I always tell the student, you have to know the context, even if you want to ignore it, you know. So this one, I know the context. I don't like the context, so I ignore it. So I just have a scale-wise, I'm still quite polite with them. So what I do here essentially is that on the ground floor, is that I create a front court. Essentially, in plane, it would look like as if I'm taking out the entire plane, the setback required and things like that. But what I did was that I create a diagonal configuration, the internal street, and then a front court here. So basically, I break down the process of entering a building. And when they go in, I will explain in a short while how that works. On the outside, like what I say, is very severe. It hardly reveals what's inside. So the construction of it is very, very simple as well that I usually do, is that I use brickwork. The brickwork will take the compression, but when you have a concrete steel, you need a lateral stability. So I use the brickwork as almost like a lost form work. Like when you have to create a form and build the concrete. Now here we are, I'm using brick, and I put the steel inside just to tie it. So the brick carry the load and also act as a part of the formwork. So it's not like what you see like 90% of the time in Malaysia. You will have all the steel work up first. But this one is sort of like grow up as you build. So just to recap, you enter from the side to a front court and then diagonally. Why diagonal? Because it creates a sense of process and also it gives you a sense of illusion that the space is bigger than it is. And you're being taken left and right and front and then top as well. And front and back is basically terminated by green. And at the center there, this is my wind scoop. And generally, it's not a good idea to have a sun glass at the center. But in this case, because of the limited amount, I decided to create a sunroof here. And the wind scoop is basically to allow the internal convection and to allow the gap in between to draw the air out. So there's a front court when you enter, and we're looking back to the front entrance. So when you enter, on the right-hand side is pretty much a colonnade. I actually find that column are quite friendly. Make it into a bench or something like that. So the space actually look occupied even when it's empty. So I find that a lot of time when we build a large space, the scales tend to lose because we want to have a long span, and then it will feel like a warehouse like that. And then I think column, when you build it right and then design it right, it framed the view, like on the right-hand side, the kitchen, but it also act as a part of the, like what I said, it occupied the space itself. And when the sun comes through at a different time of the day, it creates a different mood in the house. And then when it's overcast, you immediately you know about it. So it's basically you live with the rhythm of the day. Okay, we have 10 minutes? Okay, good. Then this is daytime. And in Malaysia, 7 o'clock, daybreak. 7 o'clock in the evening, we still got some light. So here, practically, they don't need to turn on the artificial light for a long time. And to me, that is not, it actually, to me, it's more of the atmosphere that we want to create in the space. And indirectly, I think it also a green or sustainable approach, if you want. The timber I use here are yellow balau. Why? Because they are more readily available. But recently, I just find that the timber industry in Malaysia are really in a mess in a way. They tend to mix species and things like that, but that's another story. So I like to create like things like this. I call it humanizing the space. All this pocket, because they are husband and wife, they got 2 children, so that's all they want to have. So this like hanging seat that they can sit and then look down, look out, and then each room would have its own balcony, that internal balcony that they can see through. So they if they see the uncle that they don't want to meet here, they sort of open the balcony, look down, and they don't have to participate. They just say hello to the uncle and go back in the room. So I allow all that to happen. The young people these days, you cannot ask them to do anything, isn't it? Best to let them participate on the voluntary basis. And then center there, I essentially create a steel. Why make a light structure there? That when they are up there in the living hall, they always know the happening in the house. They are sort of, that to me create a sense of intimacy. So this daytime. And I think in the tropics, it's a lot of the time it's the light quality. You like to sit in the dark and look to the bright area. That's why I show you the trees and things like that, the verticality and things like that. I think perhaps because of that, I think subconsciously, I like to produce that. Like you go to a forest, all the time when there's a small opening, the light sort of come through to the ground. It gives you a sense of like relief, if you like, when you walk through an area. So I thought the atmosphere is very much a tropical atmosphere. This is at night. So it looked a bit more like a trendy cafe or something, you know? And the dining is and a large this kitchen top and dining are all made of actually, this one is terrazzo. It's a very old method of building thing. And then this is a meranti, a very commonly available hardwood in Malaysia, softwood in Malaysia. And when you go up there, it gives you a sense of mystery, a layering of space, and the curve always create that flow of space. And this is something I want to share with you. I have a very healthy dose of skepticism against active approach. When we talk about green, we generally have 2 approaches. One is passive, meaning like what I show you earlier on, like for example, your orientation, lifted the roof and allow the air to come through, shade with a screen or all those things. Those are passive. Active is that we start to add a lot of renewable energy, like solar panel and all that. And I have a very healthy dose of skepticism on that. But what I'm about to show you is a bit like I open myself up just to learn about that aspect. And it's through a competition that I organized late last year. And I was very fortunate to meet up with a group of researchers. We are very serious with their work. And a lot of time I find that a lot of this RE or renewable energy thing are generally, it's a bit very detached. Nobody want to invest. But I was surprised that in our local institute, they're already starting. And then in fact, as close as Thailand, they're already starting using it. And the technology I'm talking about is fuel cell. The fuel cell is actually, they have different raw material. One of them, to me, is what you call one of the material they use is water for that when they can, extract the hydrogen. But this one I run through very quickly. And it's by the river. I thought, great, if you have water, you need water, got plenty of water. The idea is to purify it a bit. And I come up with some sketches. And essentially, we create a cylinder almost to leave it above the ground, cut a hole here and there, and on the front there, not too, quite sparingly, cut 2 places. So we double the public area, if you like, and then to allow to cut off the noise from the main street, and then still have a view for the back place there. So it doesn't look like a building, does it? But like what I said, you have is reimagining the familiar. So it's supposed to house offices and auditorium. Now, I won't go into too much of this, but maybe just a point about the dual-axis solar panel. It's already in operation right next door, and it's done by UKM. They dedicated that space and used by DG. I said, oh, that's not bad. And then because the dual-axis is meaning it was supposed to capture the sun, it will follow the sunlight, you know. And I said, Malaysia is not bad. And then they also have, UKM also have Seri. They actually already explore in a very advanced manner into fuel cell. So the what do you call the leftovers gas is actually oxygen. So we thought we can create an oxygen bar, the pink color one there, you know. But then also the structure is we use a lattice system, and we want to. And then what I find that is very interesting is that it's good if we can test the building out before we actually apply it. And I still find there's a lot of a problem with it when we are doing it. CFD is computational fluid dynamic. Is that some like IES and things like that, but without boring you, it's actually the creator of the program probably assume wall before you can do anything, and roof. You have to have enclosed space and punctured hole. Whereas in the tropic, sometimes we just want to have a roof, right? So the skin are actually using timber, and because the sponsor is making metal and glass, so we have to include some of those. And one thing very interesting also, I find the fish pond that I show you is I learned from my client. It's a natural pond. Basically, they don't even need filter. They use microp. And I thought, wow, that's great. So we're going to do it here. And then this ram pump is another one that I learned from Iraqi engineers, is that actually they can pump the water up. It's a 15th century technology, up to this area, which is already have a level difference, so we don't need to excavate. The water can retain there, and then use the root of the tree and things like that to purify them. And they have a series of pumping system. So by the time we reach here to harvest it for the fuel cell, it's relatively clean. But of course, it's always easier said than done, but in theory, it sounds very promising to me. So that is what it is. And I will show you about 1 minute plus video. This is not part of the submission to the entry. It's just that I just do it for my own. So outside, I'm thinking about there are so many wood that we can use, the recycled wood, and it acts as a very good insulation. And internally, we also use timber. And platform, we can use bond deck to create a flat space, and even the one that curved, the slope is actually quite minor, that you can walk on it and things like that. We didn't win the main award, but we win the honorable mention. But for me, it's a learning process that I was quite pleasantly surprised that actually Malaysian Institute, but I think its problem probably is the networking, that how to actually bring this out to the open market. Like they have CFM, what do you call it? No, PCM, phase change material, already used in our Surya shopping center here. But they use lithium bromide, which is highly corrosive, but is a side product from Petronas. But here, if you use water or even use the PCM material, it's possible. But of course, it might be a distance, but I think the gap is actually narrowing, which I think is a good news. And I will finish in about 1 minute, because I've been in practice for about 20 years. So I have a chance to revisit some of my building accidentally. I won't say accidentally, but just go and visit that. And it's nice to see how the thing works, whether what I've intended it works or not. One of them is this house in Damansara. When it's done, 2009 is like this, 8 years ago. And I visited about last 2 months ago. So when you notice the tree, when it's grown, and when the timber is patinated, they are actually all Chengao, one of the prized local hardwood. But I find that it's like a building is like a human. It aged, yeah, obviously, but I think it aged quite gracefully when you use the right material. And this is left-hand side is 2009, and right-hand side is when the tree are fully grown, and with the tower tree and things like that. And this is by one of my installer that actually he take from the back. And last 2 slides, my house. My house always visited by a lot of students. But it's interesting, 2 photographs I'm going to show you is, I would say, one year plus ago, is a picture taken by other students. So it's where they come in. These 3 are, I think, quite successful already in their own, working already. But like, that's where they sit, that where the wall and the column become the seat, I mean brick and that. And then the other one is the tropical window, if you like. Below is totally open. And then they choose to sit, although there are chairs nearby. So I think with that slide, I thank you very much.